Alright, so we're taking a look at halogenoalkanes. Now, what are halogenoalkanes? Halogenoalkanes are just basically alkanes where one or more of the hydrogens are substituted by a halogen. For example, and we saw this, we made them first in alkanes, and we also made them in alkenes through addition, but the idea is that we've seen them in alkanes. And how different are they? The idea is, in fact, I'll take this particular ethane, and what I can take, this is ethane, and if I take this ethane and I'll duplicate that, okay, now if I can replace one, let's say this H with ACl, okay, that is a halogenoalkane. Or I could replace two hydrogens, so it doesn't matter how many, one or more. For example, I said, okay, let's replace that with a bromine. All the second and third are referred to as halogenoalkanes. This is called 1-chloroethane. So this is ethane. The left one is ethane. The middle one is 1-chloroethane. The idea is that one hydrogen is replaced by a halogen. Halogens are special, by the way. They will affect properties. Halogens are more electronegative than hydrogens, so you tend to have polar bonds. They also have more electrons than hydrogen, so they'll affect physical properties. And because they're polar bonds, they are much more reactive than alkanes. But the name has alkanes in it, so they're halogenoalkanes. The idea is that they're alkanes where there's a halogen in place of a hydrogen. But that does affect properties quite a bit. This fellow could be called 1-bromo, 2-chloroethane. Here are some examples. So this is what halogenoalkanes are. I'm going to introduce them to you, and then we can also do what you call it, some properties and then reactions. Generally, we write halogenoalkanes as Rx, where R has to have a CX. And what is X? Where X tends to be chlorine, bromine, and iodine. Now, it can technically also be fluorine, but CF is very strong, and it does exist, but they don't have many reactions, not many reactions. So fluoroalkanes are part of this functional group. It's just that we don't really study them because they're not that many reactions, but you can treat them as part of this functional group. Okay, that's the first bit. Then we also classify halogenoalkanes into primary, secondary, and tertiary, just like we did for carbocations. Now, what that does mean is that if I have to have the CX bond, for example, if I have R on a carbon with two H's, and actually let's just change the color of the R group, let's call it green maybe, and you have the halogen as X. So the carbon that has a halogen bonded to it, if it has one R group, it is referred to as a primary halogenoalkane. That's the short form. Now the same carbon, if it has only one hydrogen and one halogen but two R groups, maybe they are different, this fellow, the carbon that has a halogen has two R groups, this is referred to as a secondary halogenoalkane. Now why are we doing this? Because there are going to be some properties that are different for primary and secondary. That is reactivity, the way they react. And a tertiary halogenoalkane is one where the carbon that has a halogen is bonded to three different or same alkyl groups, but there will be alkyl groups, and that would be called a tertiary 3-degree. Now I can show you that if I take C4H9Br, I can show you isomers of that are either of the three. So if I take C4H, just to show you that, if I take C4H9Br, you can have, for example, let's say carbons are, so you can have CH3, CH2, CH2, this large alkyl group on a carbon that has CH2 and Br. This is primary. If I draw this out as a skeletal, it becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the Br. Secondary would have carbon with Br, and maybe you can have a CH2 CH3 this way and a CH3 that way, and you have an H. So the two green ones are they make it a secondary halogenoalkane. Now you can draw it like that. Sometimes what people do is they draw it like that, and you might find this more appealing, where you realize that this is the 4 carbons, and the middle carbon has a bromine and has an H. Now this is 1 2 3 4, but the third carbon from the left or the second from the right has a bromine. The first one is primary, the second one is secondary, and the last one, how do I make tertiary? Well, that would be carbon with bromine and 3 alkyl groups. All 3 in this case would have to be CH3s.
Quick pause. If you're finding value in this explanation, there's so much more to discover at Alt Academy, where we break down every A-level concept with the same clarity. Now back to the video lesson.
And that would be 1 2 2. That is the case. 1 2 3 1, and now you have to have a Br, so you can put the Br this way. And this is tertiary. So the layout, so each halogenoalkane can be primary, secondary, or tertiary. It's generally won't have much difference in the final products. It's just that the mechanism, when we discuss the mechanism for organic chemistry in halogenoalkanes, you'll see there are 2 types of mechanisms, and a particular halogenoalkane will undergo a particular kind of mechanism based on its structure. Is it a primary, secondary, or tertiary? But when you get there, we'll talk about that. Okay. The next thing we're going to take a look at is the physical properties of halogenoalkanes. Okay, so halogenoalkanes and the physical properties of one thing you're going to understand is that because of the fact that halogenoalkanes, for example, we saw bromo, ethane. Generally, ethane on its own would be a gas at room temperature, but bromoethane, because they have more electrons, they tend to have stronger intermolecular forces, and the bonds are also polar, so you got the stronger permanent dipoles, which means these guys are generally found as liquids at room temperature. Okay, so for example, first property is there's found as, so lower members, unlike alkanes which must be gases, lower members are colorless liquids at room temperature and pressure. And this is important because we're going to be able to use this for the properties of halogenoalkanes. Okay, what properties? First of all, they are immiscible in water, which means they are a separate kind of solvent than water. It won't mix with water, so it'll be interesting. Okay, now the most of them are this, that yes, you can have a couple of gases, but the moment you have 2 or more carbons, they tend to be liquids, and they're immiscible in water. Also, even though they have a polar bond, so you'll start studying the properties that the carbon halogen bond is in fact polar. The halogen is negative and the carbon is positive. You could say that even though the molecule is polar, the bond is polar, the CX bond is polar, but as the R groups gets larger. Now what is this R group? Because remember, it's RX, alkyl group. As the alkyl group gets larger, even 2 carbons, the molecule is generally non-polar, and it doesn't really mix with water. Okay, it has intermolecular forces which are permanent dipoles, but it behaves non-polar. It doesn't mix in water. So generally the molecule is polar and it will have dipoles, but it tends not to mix in water. It's a good solvent to dissolve non-polar stuff also. So you could say generally behaves as non-polar in solvents or as solvents. Yes, the molecules are actually technically non-polar, technically polar. Now what does that mean? Therefore, the intermolecular forces are permanent dipole attraction. PD attraction is for permanent dipole attraction, plus instantaneous dipole induced dipole attraction. Both exist, which is why they have a stronger or higher boiling point than alkanes do. Okay. So now, but the main attraction is still this one. Okay. PD is not very effective, and the induced dipole is your main attraction for this molecule. So it might look polar to you, but it's such a large molecule that at polarity it kind of decreases. It doesn't really come into play too much. Yes, obviously you got the chloroalkanes, bromoalkanes, iodoalkanes, which means the more polar ones are chlorine, but iodines have the most electrons. And remember, it's all about electrons that determine the intermolecular force strength. So that's you got to keep in mind. So what I'm saying is, basically, you could say that CH3, CH2Cl versus CH3, CH2Br versus CH3, CH2I. Even though Cl is the most polar, but across this list, as the halogen gets heavier, the number of electrons increases, therefore boiling points will increase, proving to you that this is the reality of it, proving that it's in fact instantaneous and induced dipoles that matter, because they are the ones that are controlled by electrons. So the more electrons I have, the stronger the induced dipole attractions I'll have. So we know, I'll say this, the one thing you got to remember is that the carbon halogen bond is polar for reactions, but for physical properties the molecule is treated like a, what you call it, a non-polar molecule. Okay, and these guys are not really soluble in water. Okay, they can be considered polar, but they are generally slightly polar. So generally they are what we consider them to be non-polar solvents. But because they are colored as liquids at RTP, they behave as, the use case is non-polar solvents. You might have heard of things called CFCs. CFCs are actually halogenoalkanes, and they were a good solvent for our aerosols and deodorants and other medical sprays, till we figured out that, hey, they cause a hole in the ozone layer. So we stopped using them as solvents. But when we need to, we don't use them in aerosols, but we still use them in other solvents that we have. Okay. Hey there. If you found this A-level chemistry lesson helpful, why don't you head over to our website, altacademy.org, where you can sign up for the full A-level chemistry course. In addition to chemistry, you can sign up for physics, biology, math, or 4 other A-level subjects. Thousands of students have already taken the leap. What are you waiting for?